Everybody. I think, okay, it says we're live. Fantastic. Here we are. Let me go back to my Zoom so I can see my lovely co-host and friend and collaborator, Dr. Nikki. Um, Welcome to Journey to the Goddess TV and our premiere series, Goddess Matters. And today's episode is called Women as Portals to the Liminal, as entitled by Dr. Nikki over here. Hello, Dr. Nikki. Hello, Dr.
Hello.
Andrea. Okay, let me just get myself situated here. Great. So, welcome everybody at home. So, like I said, I'm Dr. Annalisa Durr, and I work with women to help them go from patriarchal daughters to sovereign women. That's my short bio for today and explanations. I'm going to pass it off to Dr. A.
Good morning. Good morning, Annalisa. Good morning, Dr. Nikki. Great to be with you here again this morning on Goddess Matters. Yeah, I go by Dr. A, and I am a women's, I guess you'd say, therapeutic midlife and menopause coach, helping women transition through the triple transformation of this time of life. I'm really thrilled, as I know you are, Annalisa, right, to be here this morning with Dr. Nicola Tannion. She's a colleague as well as an amazing scholar and practitioner herself. She's a medicine woman, a guide, and a writer who works both in the earthly realm and the often unseen or dismissed parts of human existence, from energy work to dreams, symbols, and patterns to those now in the ancestral and angelic realms. She's sought after as an energy worker and a spiritual guide for her accurate insight and grounded approach, use of ritual and somatic/trauma supportive practices. Nikki has over 30 years experience teaching and has lived and worked in Australia, England, the Netherlands, and the US. And in December, Nikki relocated back to the Cotswolds in England. So we are thrilled to have you live from the Cotswolds. Good morning, Nikki.
Good
Good evening.
morning,
Good
good evening, good morning, good evening.
Good something wherever you are in the world.
Good day. Yeah, g'day.
Today.
Oh, thank you so much for being here, Dr. Nikki. I know that there's more to you and more to what you're going to be sharing today. So is there anything else that you'd like to share for our audience before we get into the topic at hand today or to guide us into it?
I think, thank you for the introduction and thank you for inviting me here today. I'm really excited to be here and especially speaking on this subject, right? Because this kind of being a walker between worlds, in the Irish is called a Bein Fessa, somebody who can work with the seen and unseen realms was not really understood in rural Australia growing up, right? So it kind of made me a bit of an outlier. But I was always kind of very grateful that my mum kind of acknowledged this part of me and honored this part of me. So it kind of gave me some confidence to hold this knowing. So it would be, and this way of being in the world is what I'd say. And it's very hard to encapsulate in a normal bio all of what I do. I can stand in the academic and then trying to say, well, how else do I work in the world or work and hold this work in the world is challenging to find language for things that are typically unseen, right? So I'm very honored to be here to be able to talk about this subject and looking at women's bodies as this portal and thinking of our bodies as a portal to liminal space, to liminal time and other kind of experiences. So that's how I start off.
I love it. I think before I have a question directly related to that, but I think it's important that we also share that you're going to be teaching a course through Dr. Andrea's platform in a couple weeks. And the link is already inset in the YouTube show notes or text box, so everyone can go and check it out literally right now. But would either of you like to tell us more about it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really excited that Nikki is coming in once again to give a workshop in the Women's Wisdom Village, which is the monthly workshop offering through my platform that covers all different kinds of women's spiritual and psychological and depth psychological issues and approaches. and Nikki's going to be doing a workshop. If I remember correctly, it's dreams in the
It's
time of the great unraveling, I think.
Yeah, dream weaving in the time of the great unraveling. Yeah, and I'm honored to be doing that. We've done Dr. A and I have done, I've come in and looked at dreams before. And we kind of almost did like a speed dream dating kind of interpretation. So this will be going much more deeper into depth about the history, looking at mythologically dreams, how dreams have been used in religion, but also then looking at what is this great unraveling and why is it important right now that we look at our dreams and we work them and share them and weave them in some ways together for this kind of changing time.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be great. Really excited. Really
I'm
excited.
going to be there too. So you'll get to have an experience of all three of us again. But Nikki will be leading. Um, so I thought it might be pertinent to share with some people who might not be so familiar with this term liminal. Like, can you unpack maybe a little bit what that means for people, what you mean when you're talking about the liminal?
Yeah, so liminal is it's an in-between space. This is how I see it. It's an in-between space. So uh, when I think about a very archetypal liminal experience for a lot of women, not me personally, but a lot of women, it would be labor. So we have the pregnancy and we have the delivery. And labor is this liminal space in between one very definite way of being and another very definite way of being. People think beginning, end, and we don't think, labor is this, right? Particular thing. And going through a vaginal birthing process, I'm being very specific in my terminology here. The body is a portal. The body is then a portal through which the liminal works, and the child is born. And that's not to say that cesarean births are not liminal, but there's something within the lived experience of feeling. And Dr. A, you were saying earlier about riding the wave of labor. Is
Mhm.
that how you would kind of describe it?
Yeah, I have to admit that though I tried to have natural birth 3 times, different situations came up. I didn't dilate the first time, which was definitely a liminal experience to ride the waves of transition labor, which is the most
Hmm.
intense period of which when the uterus should be pushing the baby through the birth canal and having those huge contractions and no forward movement. So that was definitely a liminal experience. And then my first child, she ended up going into distress. And so that was that. My second child, actually, the baby, when they're born, they have to make a 180-degree turn so that the width of their shoulders goes through the wide part of your pelvis. And my son didn't make the turn. And so the wide part of his shoulders was here and the wide part of my pelvis was here. And so he got stuck. So those were fun waves to ride with, again, no forward progress, right? And so yeah, and the third one was a little bit easier because I decided I didn't want to go through 18 hours of labor and then have major surgery. So I can speak to the early processes of what we would consider to be the natural birth process, which is, the early contractions, the building, right, of that experience. And then I sort of, for whatever reason, physiology and medicine got short circuited before I was able to actually deliver the child naturally.
Mm.
But I think you speak to a really important point about the liminal. There's nothing certain within liminality.
Mm.
There are no guarantees within liminal space, and you are right within liminal space, whether or not that you were right in there. The labor process for you, the birthing process for you was the whole way. I mean, that was the experience, right?
Mhm.
And so when we think about the body as a portal, your body was still the portal,
Yeah.
and liminal space and liminal time takes you out of yourself. It alters time. It's not our calendar
Absolutely.
time or clock time. I mean, you mentioned 18 hours, and I'm sure that felt longer than 18 hours. And at the same time, when it was finished, like those 18 hours hadn't existed,
Right,
right? So this
exactly.
is,
Yeah, time slips and changes. And
yeah,
the first thing you said that I think is so important that we really don't think of is that in terms of liminality of entering the experience as one person and exiting as a different as somehow changed, right? That sort of um that sort of experience that comes from liminality or ritual or some kind of transposition of person, because you're still an individual and you're carrying the child and you're still you're a mother in that sense, but who you are after you give birth is a process that begins like it's like you're born anew with your child, right? Because every
right,
experience is new.
And
right,
I'd like to insert something in really momentarily, and that's related to birth, but kind of presupposing it is the menstrual cycle, right? We mentioned that that's also an experience of the
right.
liminal, and it's like the way that I work with it in the book is looking at it as a ritual initiation every single month, where you have that potential to go. Well, we do physiologically go into this liminal space. We can engage it psychologically and spiritually in that way if we're self-aware of the stripping away. You start as one person, then you're stripping away, and then you're in this physical, emotional catharsis, this letting go, this purging, where again, you have that ability of going into the no thingness of potentially reaching an undifferentiated state of going into what I'm saying, cosmic consciousness, if you want to go
Correct.
there. And then emerging from this menstrual underworld dismembering experience into a state of renewal. And you literally become something else or someone else.
Yeah.
And I think that's why you know, we have this ability and experience to go through those liminal spaces, monthly for most people, not everybody, right? But so, but those liminal spaces and the body as a portal, we've discussed this between the three of us before, this kind of disconnect within Western world of pain and suffering, and also of the physical body, that it's not okay to experience any pain, thus we don't stick with it, we try and numb it out, and therefore don't ever actually go through this kind of process of psyche and soul and emotional altering experiences.
Mhm.
And I think that's something that, of course, modern medicine has kind of great. We don't have to suffer, but it's kind of negated. So where else do we get these like liminal experiences, and how else is the body then used as this portal? And then we have to get to one of my favorite topics, which is keening. And, if we have birth at this end and we have death at this end, and I'm not talking about ourselves as dying, although that's another portal to the liminal. That's the final portal to the liminal, right?
Mm.
Make note to write an article on that. Um, but I'm thinking about within Irish tradition how the keening process was a very embodied, grounded, yet altered state of consciousness, an altered state of being when we are so racked with grief that time and space again is not the same, that we are shifted and changed, but it's working through the body. It's working through the body, right?
Absolutely. That kind of grief, you are losing parts of yourself, right?
Yes.
You're losing parts of yourself, or parts of yourself are transforming, or you're coming to grips with the changing of the energy field that relationship, right? Of the
Right.
immediacy of it to the unseen, right?
Yeah. And a lot of those experiences used to be held within community.
Mm,
Other women would gather to support a woman in labor.
mm.
Women would gather to prepare a body and then keen over the body and change. And we have become much more isolated in our experiences, in our grieving experiences, or in our labor experiences, right? It's become very kind of cut and dry and medicalized, and we've taken out the liminality and the sacredness out of that by
Right.
doing it. Right?
And even when it comes to something like grieving, the process of grieving in the West, right, where people there's a I don't want to say drinking is part of can be part of the celebrations, but it's another form of anesthetizing, right? We've been talking about like pushing down the grief so that we're getting like a sideways experience to the liminal, or we're not allowing ourselves to fully go in it maybe because we're self-medicating. Um, that's one point. I don't know if you want to respond to that.
Well, I think it's because we, have become we talked about this recently where we are death adverse and grief adverse cultures, and so if we're adverse to those experiences, if they are constantly like, hush, don't express yourself, don't, kind of keep it all together and don't express yourself, then we anesthetize, I think, even more, because what do we do with these big feelings? Because they're not supported in the community, or they're not supported in the family, or they're not supported. And there's always somebody who's going to be that person who expresses themselves in that way.
Yeah.
When my father died 6 months ago, when I received the news, I walked from my office into the kitchen and collapsed on the floor, screaming and wailing and flailing. And it was a spontaneous reaction, but I was definitely in liminal space, and being on the ground in that body was a whole experience in and of itself, and you know, something greater than myself took over that part of the process. I have personally a saying that I say that when I'm on my knees, meaning when I'm absolutely out in terms of grief, my ego is gone, there is nothing left, I'm grieving. That is when I'm closest to the divine,
Right.
right? I think there's something in that also.
There's a comment I want to read to you, Nikki, from Zeph 6439 says, the death of my life partner, excuse me, has opened up new avenues for my dreaming, and other liminal experiences. I can so empathize with the concept of grieving. It's as if my other half has gone.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that, like you were talking about labor, you were an individual, you go through labor, and now you're another individual. Grief and death does that. Of
Yeah.
course, we are never the same.
Right.
Right.
Nikki, I want to know your thoughts on this. You and I have talked about this in the past, but I think it's also important to consider why women, right? And in terms of something like keening, when obviously men grieve too, why is keening, or why is ritual lamenting, which we see across cultures and ancient cultures, something
Right.
attributed to women, and women are the ones as the inheritors of this tradition, or the enactors of it, the vessels of it? Why?
I think we have much easier access to our emotions physically, emotionally, but also socially and culturally, right? It's been, we've had very distinct gender roles in this arena. The men had their roles, but men are much more, to your point, men are grieving and men weep, but there's been a whole uh disservice done to men by minimizing or feminizing men's emotions, right?
Mm.
Yeah.
And that's potentially another kind of subject to touch on. But when we, but I think cross-culturally, women were the ones who dealt and prepared the bodies for death, and prepared the bodies for burial or cremation.
Do you think,
And
Nikki, that maybe it also might be a practice that women initially shepherded because they were the ones who bring life in? So now they're going to be the ones who shepherd life out, maybe as well,
yeah,
you know?
Mhm. Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, not even just the in and the out, but the in between too, right? Like
Right.
literally
Yeah, yeah,
breastfeeding,
yeah,
like nurturing, like that's also I'm sure that's a liminal
yeah.
experience in, and again, through the menstrual cycle, that's also liminality. This brings up another thought I had this morning because there's one thing for us to experience ourselves as liminal beings, as vessels of the liminal. There's another thing for like men, for example, or other women to experience us as portals of the liminal for their own experience of the divine. Does that make sense?
yes, I think
Yeah.
so. Yes, yeah,
Well,
Yeah.
I think, your work with the unseen and your energy work, when you work with people to help them with whatever their issues are that they come to you with, right? You're actually, you become a portal. You.
correct,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
correct. I become a portal.
yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not, it's not me that, it's not me that, how can I say this? I'm really clear that I'm the portal and I'm the messenger,
Yeah.
that the unseen world works through me because I listen and I hear.
And you can
And
create a dynamic connection. You can create that connection.
correct,
Yeah, yeah,
because I'm able to strip and empty out in some ways the ego and the kind of psychological, that kind of mental voice, and just kind of become very clear. I mean, just this afternoon, I was talking to two people who'd passed over, one in 1880 something, and one in so I mean, yes, I am the portal,
yeah.
right? But I think there's a nuance here, or the next kind of thing to talk about is really, how intuition is a liminal experience as well, and how women typically have, I mean, we all have this sixth sense. We have this ability. We've just been taught to dismiss it. We've been gaslit.
Mhm.
Mm.
Many, many women have been had their intuition gaslit because we know, right?
Our
That's then a
intuition,
threat.
our instincts, our womanly
Yeah,
ways of knowing, all of those
yeah.
things.
Oh,
Yeah.
100%. It's interesting. I had some intuitive stuff happening this morning. It was like a couple things in a row, and it's 10:30 here. Okay, so it's pretty early. But it was, and the thing that happened second or third was able to confirm. And I thought to myself, I go through periods of being like very intuitively receptive and others where I feel completely like disconnected. But I even, it was like knowing that we were going to have this conversation today, something unconsciously, I was like plugging into the field, the psychic field, and like opening myself to be in the energy of the portal of this archetypal portal. It's not just archetypal because it's real too. Um, so I think it's so complex and so nuanced too, how we can not just position ourselves, but tap into ourselves as portals.
Correct. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. And I think when we have one woman who's very strong in her own knowing and ability to trust, there's distinction in here. I'll just kind of give some caveat that not everything we hear is intuition, right? So we have to use discernment, and
right.
discernment around this is a whole other very cautionary topic. It's like the shadow side. So we're not bypassing here. That was maybe a conversation the three of us have had recently, maybe.
Just a little side note here. We pre-recorded an episode together yesterday on goddesses and suffering that will debut in about a month. So sorry, continue.
But I think for women, what's happening is this with this kind of rise of the feminine consciousness is we are refusing to have our intuition, our visions, our knowing, our dream world, our ability to connect with the unseen. We're refusing to have it gaslit anymore,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right.
right? We're refusing to because it was dangerous. We have his biological historical memory of being victimized and murdered for having these witch-like qualities. There we go, right? That's how it was labeled. If you knew that, how do you know that? Right. And so we were labeled, we were demonstratized, we've been, burned at stakes. But women have that, not just women, anybody who's kind of tapped in and sensitive like this has a deep memory of what it's like to speak about this stuff publicly. So God brave me on YouTube right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
I'm
it goes,
protecting you.
the thing that is so interesting, may you live in interesting times, right? Is that that the reclaiming of our intuition, of our inner voice, of our authentic knowing, right? And using it and standing in it and claiming in it and who we are and what we believe in. I mean, we're seeing it emerging
Hmm.
everywhere if you look for it, right?
Hmm.
Everywhere if you look for it. I mean, off the top of my head, I think of Minnesota, right? I think
Hmm.
of Minnesota, which brought out the whole patriarchal, what are those wine moms doing? Right? It's like, well, they're they're seeing what's happening and they're saying, yeah, no more, no more.
Right. Like talk about another anesthetizing like trope. Like there's a romanticization of being a wine mom in our culture. I really came to understand that when I lived in Greece. I was like, that is weird. Like everyone's like, it's wine o'clock. I'm like, okay. So um, I want to read another comment by Zeph that I think will lead us into some more of your work with the ancestors, Nikki.
Okay.
Um, the connection, I think this is about after a loved one has passed. The connection is never actually broken, and when you truly love someone, the bond can get much stronger when they are gone from this plane. Death is just a gateway, not an ending. So I'll start with that comment. So yeah, so because you
True.
do a lot of ancestor work, and so I think that
Yeah, my actual PhD dissertation was looking at ancestral resonance within Irish culture specifically, and it's true cross-culturally, of course. But this resonance that we have, and I think this is what the
Zeph.
Zev is talking about, where we have more, and when I defined resonance, it was really this ability to connect and vibrate on a level that is deeply harmonious and beyond time and space, clearly, right? Because the loved one or the ancestor is no longer in this physical realm. But we have this ability to connect. I agree. Death is not the end. There is a continuation. People who pass over are continuing to do their work in a different way. That could be a whole other session, or a dissertation. And but this ability then to connect, we have to allow ourselves to be open and our heart to be open in order to connect with that loved one who has passed,
Yeah,
for sure,
yeah,
right? And it can be not always easy for them to come in because there's a lot going on in this earthly world, right? And so how do they get that? How do they get our attention? Not everybody's sitting quietly meditating, inviting them in every single day, right? Sometimes they just pop in when you're driving your car. Sometimes that happens. But yes, you're right. Death is not an end by any means. Mm-mm.
So I have
No.
a question for you, Nikki. So in thinking about women as portals to the liminal, and we've talked a little bit about the birth and death and those sorts of things, how would you say, or how would you recommend or consider, or what would you be willing to discuss in terms of building a practice for women to build a practice in their lives to connect with the liminal, or how should they, if they want to encourage or build or strengthen themselves as a portal?
My first thing I think of for anybody, and women especially, is to get quiet, be in nature, allow time where we are not busy doing busy work for the sake of being busy, right? This comes up, Dr. A, in your work that you talk about with when you do the Women Who Run with the Wolves, and the protection that's needed of our workspace, our creative space, but also for this space, right? To
Time for
create
the
this
inner space. Yeah.
time for the inner space, and we need to be fiercely protective of that. So to sit outside, to put the phone down, to watch the sunset, to take 10 minutes to listen to the birds, to spend time in nature. And I mean, that would be the first place. And then my second kind of advice would be befriend something in nature and begin a dialogue
Yeah.
and listen. I think most of this comes down to being willing to listen and to receive. We're so busy trying to, say what we think. And I mean, the irony is not lost on me that that's what I'm doing right now. But but most of my time is spent actually listening for information, listening to those impulses, hearing what trees or bird or the dogs are trying to say, right? So that's how I would start.
So does that mean that the ancestors then don't are more than our family and friends that have passed on, but it includes nature itself, the rocks, the animals and plants. Are they somehow, would you consider them somehow within that web of ancestry, or are they more kinship, or how are they related in that web?
More kinship. They're living in this realm now, existing in this realm now. So they are also sentient beings. Ancestor is no longer in this living realm. So it's two different ways that liminality and the body shows up, right? And that we are able to work with the unseen world. Let me reframe that. Two different forms of the unseen, right? Or not the unseen, because you can see trees and you can see rocks, but what we don't think of them as very often in Western culture is sentient beings,
Yeah.
right? The ancestors, we know they've passed, we can't see them,
Yeah.
right? That's different.
Yeah,
Um,
Yeah.
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 I
And
even
they
think
will
about the,
share us. They will share with things. So I have a family member, I have a cousin who is also the same. We have the same lineage, and was recently going and communicating with a tree that they normally communicate with. And the tree had said that there was glass at the bottom of its roots that was starting to impact it. And could she remove the glass? Now she's hearing it like through her body, through her ears, through her mind, through her senses. the tree, it's not talking in English language like we are doing now. And she started investigating and ended up with a huge bag of glass and messaged me because I'm the only person who knows that won't call her crazy, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And we need to start normalizing that, if that makes sense.
Yeah. What you're saying just takes me back to, you know, Annalisa and I have talked about goddess matters, matter, right? As in
Yes.
mother, as in matter, as in everything that's here has within it the energetic history of its beginnings, right? That you can tap into, whether it's rocks or trees or the ocean water itself or sand or the person standing next to you, so I think it's to see the world as being ensouled, right?
Yeah,
Hmm.
and sold. But we also, we're living in a world that has been, the kind of overarching ethos has been to have dominance over,
Mm-hmm.
right? Instead of working collaboratively and harmoniously with the living world around us and seeing it as having intelligence and being sentient and uh, being able to work with us, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, which is why we're at where we're at in the world right now, because of that loss of the understanding of the sentience of all life, the intrinsic value, the ensoulment, and our connection.
And the interconnection of everything,
Yeah,
the
Hmm.
interbeing of everything. Yeah.
yeah,
Hmm.
So if everything's interconnected and if everything is, you know, um, is based in interbeing, we talk, the butterfly effect or the pebble in the pond or whatever it is, how can how can cutting the cords in one sense of the ecosystem not affect everything, and how can that not affect how we experience it either in the daily or liminally,
right.
right?
I want to just take a moment also to again thank everybody who's here and keep sharing your thoughts. Zeph says yes. Beck says I couldn't love this advice more. Um, Zeph also said something else I missed. Maybe we'll find it. And if you're enjoying this conversation, please remember to like and continue to leave comments and share it with your friends. Excuse my little intermission here. Getting back to the conversation. So, Nicola, I don't know if you wanted to, or Nikki, excuse me, wanted to respond to Andrea's point, or if we should just keep working into the other layers of the liminal.
I was
Well,
just a
we are,
side point. Yeah, it was a side
Yeah.
but
point.
but we are matter, and that's the body.
Yeah.
So to your point, I mean, it's the earth body and the human body, and they are both liminal, and we have this experience of experience liminality. I mean, that the earth must be looking at human beings. I wonder if the earth's experience right now is this kind of crazy liminal space of these humans that have been here. I wonder. I'm gonna ask.
I don't know. I think it must feel like a virus. She must feel like a virus.
Yeah,
It's getting so hot, you know,
yeah,
like,
true.
it's
And scientists do have that concept of Gaian fevers, right? As she goes through these
yeah.
heating and cooling periods of allegedly of her own volition. But she's a massive ecosystem. So I don't know if maybe there are other factors beyond just the human factors that, contribute to her changes.
Yeah.
But that's a side conversation, maybe.
But the earth matter, the earth body and the human body, the woman's body, we both have our own intelligence.
Yeah.
Right.
And so what might look like um, disruption or an earthquake or volcano is kind of what I'm thinking about. These kind of earthly, kind of disruptive, volcanic, violent, but big energy experiences. It's a way of releasing, and we too also have that, right? As that's very important in terms of the body having those experiences, but also as a way, going back, I'm thinking to keening of these or menstruation or labor, these very intense, concentrated experiences that take us into a connection with something other than ourselves.
And
Yeah.
heating, there is an element of heating, right, in
Yeah,
them too.
Yeah.
Um,
yeah.
and I'm just thinking about how in the Hindu tradition they have this concept of tapas, the inner fire that rises the more intense your spiritual practice gets, which actually gets you closer to the divine and these
Hmm.
liminal,
Yeah.
supra, you could call them superpowers, but that's another conversation. Anyway, there is this heating that does accompany these liminal realities.
So, well, some of the really intense ones, right?
Yeah.
And I think for
Yeah.
some people, that becomes the access point into understand. It becomes the access point into having an experience with not just the liminal realm, but what the liminal realm opens us up into, right? So the ancestor realm. So I have the experience of the body as my body as a portal to the liminal, but also through the liminal and to the other side to Andrea's point earlier about, birth doing that. So it's also not just to stay within liminal space, it's to actually access and move through. Some people just stay, but some people actually can access that liminal, the portal, and move through the portal to the other side. It's then knowing, as we know in all good mythologies, how do you come back, right?
Yeah.
And
And
so I
what,
have to say, start off gently, right?
yeah.
I've been this way for a very, 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 very long time, and have
Yeah.
had a lot of trials with that. So I'm not saying to everybody, open yourself up. I mean, some people. I wasn't going to talk about this. I didn't even think about talking about this, but it's kind of coming up now. Is that for some people, the use of plant medicines will kind of open that portal. But they used to be used in very specific and sacred
Mm-hmm.
ritual
Mm-hmm.
containers.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what happens is that we can run the risk of using a natural substance or using a substance to try and have this experience of the liminal or the other, and not being grounded enough, not being practiced enough, not having the container enough, and for all of the unprocessed shadow to come up and overwhelm us. So it's just to kind of hold the shadow side of this conversation
Yeah,
as well.
absolutely. I mean, those a lot of those ritual practices with those medicines, as you said, were held in community, were led by a
Yeah.
shaman, were prepared for, right? There was initiation, there was preparation, there
Yeah.
was there was a container, like you said, set up for the ritual practices,
And
and
a
then
tradition and a lineage.
yeah, a tradition and a lineage, and then
Yeah.
there was also a container for the afterwards, for the
Yes.
processing of the experience, right? And it
Yeah.
not just something where, you go off and do it by yourself and have some kind of experience that you have no connection or grounding to fully understand or incorporate what you've experienced, right?
Right.
And I'm not saying that some people can't hold that. Some people that absolutely works for somebody,
Yeah.
for some people. But I would say for the majority of the uninitiated, in order to open up to another realm, another alternate coexisting reality, is probably more accurate to say.
Yeah.
It's it can open up people too much and they don't know how to come back, right? So when the portal then becomes too open and you
Mm.
don't know how to move back through that,
Yeah.
that's also an issue, right? So that
Yeah.
then becomes, you know um you
Yeah,
know
absolutely. I
It's
think when I think about, excuse me, about the different ways of accessing the liminal, I think about about music, right? I think about drumming, I think about
yeah.
singing, I think about meditating, I think about, like you had said, spending time in nature, in quiet, right?
Hmm.
Not not loneliness, but in solitude, right?
Hmm.
And a lot of these practices that we no longer have, many of us, right? Um, as our culture is becoming less and less formally religious, right? We have fewer of those community ritual or ceremonial experiences available to us.
Right. And not this, you know, for me, the silence works, solitude works, aesthetic dance, drumming, to your point, they also kind of create, you know, an alternate space. And I use those as well. But just as a place to start, I would say
Yeah.
in silence and
Yeah.
whatever. But you're right, that we are losing those kind of the lineage and those kind of sacred spaces, you know, within our culture.
Yeah.
Okay, I'd like to make a point and then I want to
Yeah.
read a few comments and then I think we should move on to dreams or
Yeah,
another.
sure.
Yeah. Everybody at home, we may go over 5 to 10 minutes just in case, just to let you know, so you can make space for that. So the point I want to make is I had once read about an artist who takes pictures of nature meeting points in the elements, and because he believed that humans are mostly fascinated by those meeting points where lava meets water, where, you know, the earth meets
Ocean.
water, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, ocean. I mean, like, anyway, and I really let that kind of mull inside of me for years because I actually really wanted to try to counter that point, and I really couldn't because there really something is interesting in that tension because it's the tension where that liminal that brings us into the liminal. Um, so go ahead, yeah, and then I'll read these.
So they're liminal time, that's liminal space. And so I would encourage people to find spaces within their local environment that are the earth and the shore, or the, you know, where those two kind of points meet, and then go at a liminal time of the day. So
Mm.
daybreak or sunset,
Yeah.
just to add some potency.
I
Absolutely.
love
Well,
it.
That's all I was going to say.
yeah, biologically, it's really interesting to think that it is at the edges where
Hmm.
life thrives. When you go into the deep, deep, deep ocean, in the deepest parts of the ocean, there's life, but it's not where we get the real roiling and coming together of, and evolution and birth and death cycles, and all of that happens at the edges.
At the edges, that's right. I'm
Yeah.
thinking of underwater volcanoes. Okay, hold on a second. So, multiple intelligences are valuable for understanding ourselves. That's Leon. I'm sorry. I'm going to mispronounce this. Leontine.
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 Leontine. Okay. Beck says the most transformative experiences of my life have come from huge disruption. Leontine
Hmm.
says again, agreed. Transformation can be profound in such instances. Zeph, agreed. Change is universal, constant. It's about going with the flow, isn't it? Leontine, I sometimes push against change and will often regret it. I learn more about myself when I adapt to the change, and it's about the liminal space for me that impacts how indeed the end result. Beck says purposeful noise versus unproductive noise. Um,
Mm.
they keep coming, so I'm going to let us jump back into the combo. But
Yeah.
if you
So
want to respond, yeah.
yeah, I all of that, all of that. Yeah, that's amazing that everybody's got their own experience of this, right? Everybody, we all intuitively know. I think that's the point. We know, we're here, we're having the discussion because, you know, we remember, we do know this. And it's only when, you know, this is also what's coming back up, is the really claiming and owning how how we work and connect with the liminal. Not everybody works in the same way, right? Not everybody hears. So I hear, I see, I smell, I sense. I don't taste, but some people taste. I know some people who taste and don't have the others. Well, that's kind of a nice segue to kind of thinking about all of what we're talking about all shows up in dreams, right?
Mm.
And how dreams are in and of themselves this incredible liminal space.
Oh, Nikki's frozen. Is she frozen for you, Andrea?
Yes, she froze. Oh no. This incredible liminal space where
She's in the liminal. Oh my God. She's
oh,
back. We
she's
thought we
back.
Well, and
lost
it's
you in liminal
interesting because
space.
you were both stuck in the liminal for me.
Yeah, you stuck on that. You said, and dreams are the liminal. And we're like,
Oh, that's interesting. Oh, that's
I mean,
really interesting.
is this a point where we have to say we are working with liminal technology,
yeah,
right?
Well,
or is this,
we're working with liminal technology, but we are within the archetypal field of the liminal, as
yeah,
you were
the
saying.
liminal just pressed pause for a minute.
Yeah, I said, take a minute,
Oh
take a
my
minute.
God.
But what I was saying is dreams, everything, dreams are the ultimate liminal space that most of us experience on a daily basis. So most of us will dream 2 hours a night, at least 2 hours a night. Whether or not we remember them is a whole other thing, right? But anything is possible in a dream. Time and space both alter in the dream world. And we have full body experiences in allowing us to access that portal, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, Andrea, when you were talking about, the deep ocean, that shows up in the dream. Underwater volcanoes, they show up in the dream. So, but so do our ancestors, so do our loved ones who have passed over,
Mm-hmm.
right? Particular favorite kind of subsection of topic for me is, visitations of those who have passed over. And that's different, I think, from just dreaming about them. So we are really in this liminal space when we sleep, but we also have access to the liminal,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And during this time, I mean, this is the workshop that I'll be leading, but during this time of what's called like the great turning or the great unraveling, um, it's important that I think we work the wisdom that comes through us during this time, whether it's dreaming, right, and dream weaving, but looking and sharing this information together so that we can start building up the bigger picture, right?
Yeah.
So I only will have one bit of information and someone else is going to have another bit of information. And I think it's important that we weave our stories together, we help work and weave our dreams together because the larger structure is collapsing. And what we weave together will be creating what's coming next
How do
as
we
as a
know?
word.
How do we know when we're looking at our own dreams, which dreams are just us kind of digesting some of the stuff that happened that day versus something that's part of the larger woven dream tapestry?
Well, two things. Even our personal dreams have to be woven into the larger collective, right? Because what we our personal experience is part of the collective.
Mhm.
We can't all have, and we don't all have big dreams every night. Very few people have big dreams often, right? I'm not saying they don't exist. They exist, and I've talked to both of you about premonition dreams, but I think it's very important to take those personal dreams and to add them and weave them together and work them within a group so that you're building and weaving together your story with how someone else sees it and someone else's dreams. I mean, I was part of a dream group when I lived in Atlanta, Georgia for 4 years during COVID. And so, yes, we had individual dreams, but wow, those dreams over that period of time really started showing what was coming on a level, how people were processing, what the story was then going to be within the collective that went forward.
Yeah.
Right. When some people say, well, that was the year of COVID, I always go, 1 year? It was more than 1 year,
Yeah.
Hmm.
right? Because the dreams were saying, no, this is much more, right? And they
Hmm.
also speak to information that we need or a pressure within ourselves, right?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Nikki, I just want to make a really quick comment if I
Yeah.
could try to as quickly as I can. When you had talked about the dreams coming together and building the new collective in the time of the unraveling, right? At at a time when I was very, very ill and almost died. I got sepsis, didn't know I had it, thought I had the flu. And so I was in the hospital and I hadn't slept for like 4 days because I thought I had the flu. And I got to a point where my brain and my body were so exhausted and I was close to dying. And anytime I would close my eyes, I would have visions. It was like the movie started when I closed my eyes. And at one point I told the nurse, I said, you got to help me sleep, have all these people come in and do their tests at once. Cause if you don't, I'm going to start having these visions with my eyes open. Right. And
Hmm.
one of the visions was, um, of like, it was a dream, like a dream where it was a medieval village, so to speak, with the little huts and the pigs and chickens running around and all the people and stuff. And it was, like from our theater background, Annalisa, it was perfect set. And I was running through the town and I was telling everyone, we're going to build the new world in our dreams. So when you go to sleep tonight, bring with you all the things that you will need in the new world to help build the new world. And the idea was that everyone would go to this new place first in the dream world, bringing with them what they needed to live in the new world, and that out of the dream world it would be created. And so I think it's just a really interesting kind of parallel to what you're saying.
I can't even add anything to that. That's brilliant.
Yeah. So, well,
Right.
it obviously came from the collective unconscious because I was like, I was pretty close. I was right on the edge.
And that was
Well, you
before.
were you
Sorry.
you were in liminal space, and
Yeah.
illness is another way, right?
Yeah.
Illness is another way of, and having visions and seeing, and how do you kind of take it? But to have that specifically,
Yeah.
we will tap into that on the workshop as
Yeah.
well, about
Yeah.
how do you set what it is that you are wanting to receive before you go to sleep,
Yeah. I had,
right?
I had four visions, complete movies like that, visions within like a 12-hour period. And one of them I ended up writing down as like a fairy tale. Right. Yeah.
Hmm.
Can I ask you, was this before you started Pacifica, before you started your
This
work with women?
No, this was actually, I was coaching women, just starting coaching women. I had just finished my master's and it was before I started my PhD thesis work. So
It was at the
yeah, it
beginning.
was it was a
Yeah.
liminal space. It was in between.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. And
Um,
yeah, that's prophetic in some ways.
yeah.
Yeah.
So Zeph asked the group, and I'm going to pose it to us too. Does anyone else have vivid dream experiences around 3 in the morning? Is that typical to have them, or does it matter when the most rich vivid dreams happen?
I think it depends when you sleep and what your own personal REM is, and where, yeah, it depends. So I imagine a lot of people, uh, well, who else has dreams at that time? My most vivid are right before I wake,
Mine
but
are too.
that's just me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe other people can put that in the chat, what the common experience is, what the common kind of time is.
Yeah.
So we're kind of closing in on time here.
Yeah.
Um, so in the next 5-ish minutes, any closing thoughts or any little gems that you'd like to leave with people, um, um, to continue the conversation on their own, or maybe they want to, maybe you can let them know how they can work with you, et cetera, et cetera.
I just want to thank everyone for being here. I mean, it's a fascinating way to be in the world, and I think it's more common than we allow ourselves to experience, right? And if this is new for you, I really kind of encourage you to, find some time, carve out time to be in nature, to be silent, to allow that to kind of really start grounding that voice and the experience of just being. Um, check your dreams. So I'd encourage people to just start writing down dreams. And then, to go further, we've got the workshop, I think, is on the 21st of March.
Yes, it's
And
on a Saturdays
it's on a
because Nikki's
Saturday.
coming to us from the UK, and we chose 10 in the morning Pacific to 12 Pacific, so that I think is that 6 to 8 your time, Nikki, or
Yeah, it's 6 to 8 my
6
time.
to 8 p.m. so
Um,
that people in the UK and in Europe and across the US and anywhere that anybody wants to come and join, we picked a time that was going to be hopefully doable for the most people.
yeah, and then so it wasn't at 2 o'clock in the morning either
Yeah, yeah.
for me. And then I think my contact information is available
In the
if
show
anybody
notes,
wants
yeah.
to contact me in the show notes, if anyone wants to contact me. But just
Yeah.
thank everyone for their time and both of you for hosting this essential conversation.
Oh, it was so much fun. I hope that you come back and speak to us about Irish mythology and goddesses, dream work, whatever you want. It's a pleasure for me to have you here.
Yeah,
Thank
absolutely.
you.
It's wonderful to work with you as ever, as always. A blessing for me and for everyone. So great to see you,
Yeah.
Nikki.
You too.
And so with that, I'll remind everybody that the link to the Nikki's Dream course or workshop with Andrea is in the show notes. All the other links to her socials, my socials, our websites, Andrea's websites, all that jazz are in the show notes. Please like, please subscribe, please comment, please share this video with others. Please give us suggestions for future episodes too. The live chat somehow disappears. I'm a little technologically incompetent, or just like just barely where I need to be. So message. It's better to leave comments in the basic comment section, or email me your ideas. Um, yeah, but this has been such a pleasure. I'm having such a fun time with you, Andrea, and Nikki as our first official guest, twice actually in a row. And I'm having fun building the community with everybody who keeps showing up. So thank you so much.
Yep.
Thank
Thanks for
you.
commenting and
Thank you.
chatting and coming and listening into these conversations. We hope to see you again in the weeks ahead.
Yeah, and next week, what's our topic next week? The fire horse.
Next week is, yes, we're going to be talking to an archetypal astrologer, Joey Paitner, and then we're going to be talking to a Chinese astrologer. And do you remember the name of the doctor?
Tamsin Lee, Dr. Tamsin
Tamsin Lee,
Lee.
right? And then we're going to be talking about as above, so below, the changes that are happening in the cosmos, in our particular little corner of the cosmos, and the year of the fire horse and what it means for moving into the age of Aquarius. It's going to be an awesome conversation, so don't miss it.
Yep. All right, everybody. Thank you. And you two, will you just stay on just for a moment? I'm going to say goodbye to everybody else, though.